Um, Ian, there's a lot of ladies featured in your book, and I was quite surprised to get to the chapter where your old flames were happy to sort of write a little passage about you. Did you only publish the good ones?
If anybody had a bad one, a bad opinion about me, they don't talk to me. So uh, I was lucky. I had some lovely. I've been married 3 times. All beautiful girls, inside and out, and uh, I was lucky. I was lucky that some girls took pity on me. Um, yeah, I mean, uh, I was just lucky. Yeah, I've been a few girlfriends, but I was just lucky.
Now, you mentioned earlier in part one about Australia. Can you tell us a bit more about that? Because you went over there to get away from seeing what you could have been riding but wasn't able to. So you
I
had a
could,
successful time over there.
yeah, I couldn't settle, Simon. That's the trouble. I found it hard to settle because horses were running that I used to ride, and although I wasn't compass mentis up here, I knew they were running, and apparently Steve will tell you that I used to ring him up in the middle of the night. This was before
Steve Smith Eccles,
mobiles.
this is.
Steve from Eccles, yeah, and chat to him as though it was the middle of the day and talking about things that happened a long while before, as though they'd only happened the day before. He'll tell you that, and he kindly put up with all that shit off me, and um, yeah, I was struggling to settle, and I can't remember who, but somebody had said that I ought to go away somewhere, and then Mrs. Thompson Jones, the first, she got in touch with me. I can't remember how, but she got in touch with me. She knew somebody who had a spelling station out in Australia, and she or they thought it'd be a good idea if I went out there to work, just riding horses. So I did it, and I worked my passage out there. I took some horses for um, I can't remember the name of the firm now. To travel horses to on the flight out there we had 38 or something horses, a load of zoo animals, a load of dogs, loads of dogs, and a big bull called William. Sticks in my mind like it was yesterday. And it was a fascinating flight. But because of the rules regarding infection in those days, we couldn't go the short way to Australia, straight across Saudi Arabia that way. We had to go. We went to Shannon first in Ireland, and picked up something else there. Then we went to Newfoundland, Canada, and then Newfoundland. I can't remember. Newfoundland, then Calgary in Canada, then Hawaii and Fiji, then on to Sydney. 40 hours.
What the conditions like in a plane full of animals?
Good, good. Yeah, it was good. They're not as comfortable. It wasn't as comfortable then because bear in mind that was 1980, as they are now. They apparently now they have seats and things like that. We were sitting on hay nets. There was a there was a bunch of professional grooms there, and there was a few of us having, including a girl, just getting a lift over there. The professional grooms, they knew what to do. They got drunk, sewed up, got drunk, and then sewed up again by the time we got to Australia.
And when you got there, you ended up training horses.
Yeah, not straight away. I was just working. It was a 9-hour train journey from Sydney out to where I was going, and I was met at 2 o'clock in the morning by one of the lads. And yeah, I was just an ordinary lad there, and one or two of the horses just needed a bit of individual attention, and I had the experience to do it. And anyway, but then it started to get a bit hot towards end of November, and I was struggling a bit with the heat. And in early December, I think it was early December, I said, I think I'll go home for the winter, but I wouldn't mind coming back. And before I left, the boss of the place, who's dead now, he said, well, if you come back, he said, you can train these horses. Um, and I thought about it, and but to be quite honest, when I got back, it was obviously cold, but I did miss the heat a bit. But the heat was, some days are 40 degrees. But anyway, I went back in March, April time, trained my first winner, because the seasons run August to August there. We've had the first winner at a place called Noranda, and maybe May, something like that. And then I had one season I was third in the championship with 78 winners. Bearing in mind we only raced 3 times a fortnight. But I had a couple of good horses, Simple Dreams, Rolled Gold, one in Sydney, and 1 or 2 others. I loved the Sydney racing. Yeah, so professional.
So what did you come back in ultimately?
My first marriage was falling apart, and things. Yeah, the place that I was training from was going downhill, and there was plenty of people snapping at my heels to take over, and then I spent a few months in Adelaide, just to get away from that. Oh, and I tell you what, I don't remember now. I did have several months working at the Lindsay Park Stud, the famous Colin Hayes place. That was fantastic. What an education that was. Too late in my career for that, but that was a really wonderful place. Colin Hayes trained there. Then his son took over, and I think the place has fallen apart now. These holiday homes there. I don't know whether they still train there or not, but it was a fabulous place.
And so what did you do when you came back?
Well, I was walking down the high street one day, and I bumped into a chap. I can't remember how I'd known him before, but Mr. Hugh Sidebottom, and he was a trainer from the 1930s. Lovely old man, and he said, "What are you going to do now?" I said, I don't know. I really don't know. He said, "Well, tell you what," he said, "ask around." He said, "Get some horses to break." He said, "You come and use my stables." He's got a place out at he had a place out at Fordham. And that's what I did. And Mick Ryan kindly sent me some horses to break to start with. And then word got around, and I specialised in horses that just needed a little bit of individual attention. They needed some manners putting in them, and if there was some sort of problem, I just tried to sort it out, and worked well.
Now, at the time of your fall,
Yeah.
you were flying high, you know, sort of riding good horses, and
Yeah, I was just starting. I think I was on the downhill slide then, because my weight was getting very difficult then.
Okay, so do you ever dare sort of think about how your career would have gone had you not suffered that fall?
I have thought about it actually once or twice. Well, I would have ridden a double one day at Cheltenham in '78, but I broke my pelvis the day before Cheltenham at Southwell on a novice chase of Mrs. Sly's at Southwell. I would have ridden Alverton in the Arkle and Sea Pigeon in the Champion Hurdle. I would have won on both of them. Graham Thorner won on Alverton. Frank Berry rode Sea Pigeon and went too soon, and he got beaten. But I would have won on him that day. Yeah, with that double under my belt, I suppose I might have continued riding a bit more. But the weight was getting really hard. I mean, in the summer I'd go to well over 12.5 stone, and then I did do 10 stone a few times, but 10.4 was my limit really.
And you, just going back to your book, you made some great mates along the way. Two you seem to speak extremely fondly of, Steve Smith Eccles and Bob Champion.
Yeah. I used to stay with Bob when I was down that way. He'd stay with me when I was he was up this way. Yes, we still, the three of us are still mates. We did a show last autumn, I think, at the or earlier this year, at the in aid of charity at the museum, National Horse Racing Museum. Everybody called it the Three Stooges, but there you go. There you go. But it for retraining of racehorses. Yes, they're good pals, and we still see each other a lot.
The Three Musketeers out on the town still.
Yeah. Well, yes, not now. We need a week's notice now before we do anything like that.
They see how much, obviously, and you get to reading the book, you can see how much fun you had during the 13 years that you were your career in the saddle. Do you think that you would have enjoyed being a jockey these days when it's so much more restricted? I mean, you wouldn't get away with a lot of things that you got away with back then.
Yeah, I would have enjoyed riding today if I hadn't ridden in the 70s. 60s and 70s when I did. I mean, I remember one day at Newcastle, I assume it's still the same, if you've got the weighing room and then the ambulance room is tacked on the back. 5 of us weighed out for the same race on the same saddle because it was a very light one. And we'd pass it to our accomplice, who would run through the ambulance room and pass it, no, the other way around. We'd give it to an accomplice in the weighing room and then run round to the back and pass it back through the ambulance room so somebody else could use it. It was a very light saddle. I can't remember who owned it. I think it was Barry Brogan owned it. I think. You know, we got away with that sort of thing, and there were other. Yes. We. No, yeah, if I hadn't ridden in the 60s and 70s we were against real men, I mean, you know, real tough blokes.
What about the sort of whip rules and stuff these days? What do you think about that? Because in your days it would have been a proper whip, wouldn't it?
Yes. I mean, I might have been overzealous. I certainly know one of my pals was overzealous. Close pals was overzealous for the whip, and he realises that now, and I was. But horses' skins seem to be a lot tougher than ours. Yes, I do regret not being a bit more lenient with the whip, but I got had in one day. Oh yes, one day after there's a 4-mile chase at Cheltenham called the Old Year Chase. It used to be sponsored anyway by Bass. If it's a 4-mile, 4.25 mile chase on New Year's Day at Cheltenham, and I did get had in there after that race one day because I rode a horse called Prince Rock, and he was a lazy little bugger, and I gave him his first slap about the second or third fence, and then several through it. But apparently I'd hit him 16 times through the race, which is a lot, but I hadn't actually punished him as such. But he was a lazy little bug. But I did win. The horse was running, and so anyway, the sort of postscript to that story is that in the race afterwards, there's a chap came in called I think it was Mr. Cobden, and Sandy May had got hurt in the big race, and he was looking for a jockey to ride his horse the novice chase after the one after the big race. You see, Nick Henderson said to me, if he asks you, he said, ride it. He says it'll win. So Mr. Cobden did ask me, and I rode it. And I was going really well, coming down that hill, probably going towards the third last. I can't remember which course we were on. Anyway, the horse fell. And I got a bit of a kicking and broke my leg. And then the steward decided to have me in about my overuse of the whip in the big race. So I had to go, and I could barely walk. And I was standing in front of the steward, trying to make out there was no pain. I was not in pain at all, and I fell over. And they actually gave me a chair to sit in while they bollocked me. and I can't remember whether I got fined or not, but I don't believe so. But that was the end of it. And that is the day I lost the ride on that good horse, Strombolus. Because I was supposed to ride him later, the next day. And I went to the races thinking, I spent the night with Vic Sohn at Vic Sohn's house, thinking that I'd get through. And I went to the yard to ride schooling in the morning, and got out, and I was in a lot of pain. I was full of drugs, and I got legged up on the horse, but I couldn't stand up in the iron because the leg was broken. You see, below the knee, and so I had to call off. Right, and I was supposed to ride Strombolus later that day, and Bob Champion got the ride. And I tell Bob that Peter Bailey thought he'd go well for an amateur. So anyway. Bob ended up winning 3 on him when I was injured every time. So.
Yeah. Final question.
Yeah.
Anything that you would change? Any regrets in your career that you would have done differently had you had another go?
Yes, I might have stayed up north. But if I'd stayed up north, I might not have got the ride on those good horses. That put me in the picture. Hard to say. 1 or 2 of my relationships might have been different, but nothing major. Diet. Yes, I know more about diet now than I did in those days. But my rock bottom was eating a takeaway Chinese in Christmas Day in my car, in a car park in Carlisle on Christmas Day.
Brilliant.
Rock bottom. Can I get any lower than that?
Oh dear, the going up was what was it? The
Going up was
the going up was worth the coming down.
that sums it up. That sums it up. The good times were great, the bad times weren't, but the good times made up for it.
Brilliant. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you, Ian Watkinson. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, Ian, everybody watching this is going to want to see that jacket, so there it is.
Yeah, it is.
Beauty, isn't it?
This jacket is nearly 50 years old.
That was 400 quid at the time. 40 rides worth that was.
Yes, that's right.
Talking of the rides, let's have a look at some of these pictures.
Tingle Creek, my first winner for Tom Jones. They were extraordinary. Oh, this is one day I rode 3 winners at Huntingdon. I had 7 rides that day, 3 winners, 2 falls. That's Stromboli, the novice chase at Cheltenham. The wonderful Sea Pigeon, couple of falls. Horses. There's a bit more falls there. That's obviously great Tingle Creek. That was taken at the pond fence. I mean, look at it. Look at that horse there. Isn't he fantastic? Pity about the amateur on him, but there you go. I won that race with a broken collarbone. That good trainer is finishing second, Brian Smart. And that girl there, she was my girlfriend. 11 days later, she was killed.
Oh,
Night Nurse, Tingle Creek. Look at that. Look at Tingle Creek there. What a fantastic shot that is.
Excellent. Let's have another look at that jacket before we...
I'm leaving this to my son, and hopefully it will be passed on to my grandson.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Ian.
You're welcome.